702.
Health and wellness.
25 minutes before 12 o'clock, time now for our health and wellness feature. And we're discussing this new HIV infection that will be made available in South Africa. There's been a major new development in the fight against HIV in South Africa. I'm sure you've seen this in the news, a long-acting injectable prevention option that could be a game changer. And this new injection basically offers protection against HIV without the need for a daily pill. Yeah, it's the first of its kind to be approved for prevention on this continent, and South Africa is leading the way after our health regulator, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, officially gave it the green light earlier this month. So this approval quite significant because it marks a major step forward in public health and HIV prevention, with rollout expected to begin in the 2026 across high incidence districts. We've invited Mia Malan, who's the founder and editor-in-chief of Bhekisisa, to speak to us more about this. And Mia joins us now on the line. Mia, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thanks for having me.
Could you please explain to us what this new injection is all about, and how does it differ from the HIV prevention options we've known until now?
Yes, sure. So what we've had in our public health clinics for free for HIV prevention up until now is condoms, of course, but we know that research shows us that many people, or fewer and fewer people, are using condoms. A survey that came out last year showed us that. And we've had a HIV prevention pill, but you have to take it every single day, and people struggle with that. So it's not like a vaccine, it's like medication that you use, and only while you use that medication does it work. And if you use the less and less often that you use it, the less well it works. So if you don't take that pill every single day, you don't have all the protection that it could provide you with. Now, the reason researchers are so excited about Lenacapavir, and in short they call it Len, is that Len only has to be taken once every 6 months. It's medicine that they call slow-acting medicine. So it takes 6 months to release into your body. That's why you only have to go every 6 months. And they feel if the adherence is easier to do, then people are more likely to use it correctly.
I see. So we are the first African country to approve this drug, if I'm not mistaken. What led to that decision, and what does it say about our capacity to lead on such an HIV innovation?
Yes, that's a great question, Clement, because it has been done really, really fast. And it has been done with help. Our regulator, SAPRA, worked with the European medicines regulator called the European Medicines Agency. They have a special program in which they help with the evaluation of data, because what the regulator does is it looks at all the data of the drug company that makes the drug. And it has to make sure that that data shows that the medicine is safe and that it works the way that the drug maker says it works. So SAPRA was invited to do some of the evaluations with the European Medicines Agency's program. And then after that was done in July, that program approved it. We still needed to do some local stuff here in South Africa. And that SAPRA did in 60 days. That's how they came to the 21st of October when this drug was approved. To give you an idea of how fast it is, with COVID vaccines, SAPRA sped up its processes significantly. But this process was still 10 days faster than the fastest process for a COVID vaccine. So we've got so many things to complain about in South Africa, but SAPRA is something that at least gives us some hope.
So who will be eligible to receive this injection when the rollout begins is it 2026?
Yes, in 2026, we hope to get our first doses that the Global Fund will pay for before the end of the year, and the Health Department has said that it could start as early as February to roll it out in about 10% of clinics in South Africa. So who is eligible? It's actually not described by age, but by weight. So anyone of 35 kilograms and older. Of course, it's if you're having sex, because we only have evidence that Lenacapavir will prevent HIV infection through sex. And in our country, if you want to know who needs it, the group which has the highest number of HIV infections in South Africa are women between 15 and 24. If you look at just what proportion of HIV infections, that is 40% of our new infections come from that group, and they only 8% of the population. So that is a group that we really want to focus on. And as we know from other research, young people, because these are young people, don't always see their risk as significant for whether that's HIV or a car accident. You know, they're also less likely to, for instance, wear seatbelts. So we would need to do a lot of work to make them aware of their risk. But research also shows us they're not great with adherence. So a daily pill is something they struggle with. There are other groups that are not bad with a daily pill. And that's why another option of HIV prevention is now great. We won't stop providing the pill because people need choices. But from contraception, we, for instance, know research shows us that the more options you give women for contraception, the more likely they are to take it up. And the most common form of contraception in Africa is an injectable. So from that, researchers hope that people would also be open to being injected for HIV prevention.
And when this is being implemented, is this going to be happening across the high incidence districts in the beginning? Is that where it begins?
Yes, because we will roll it out the health department will roll it out in 3 phases. The first phase, we get doses from the Global Fund. They buy it. We buy it with that money, and they actually order it on our behalf in South Africa. Those doses will be used in 22 health districts. We have 52 health districts altogether in South Africa. So in about half of them, but of all our primary healthcare facilities, which are essentially the clinics that you see, only about 10% of them will stock it in the first phase, and it will only be in 6 provinces. Because it's so few doses, we can't sprinkle it all over because then we will have no impact. We need to be sure that we use it in the places where it's most needed. In 2027, cheaper generics will become available, and the health department has already indicated that they will allocate budgets to buying extra doses from 2027 onwards. Our Global Fund doses are not nearly enough to make a huge impact or a huge dent in new infections. But once we can start to add more doses through generics, that will become a faster process.
Yeah. 17 minutes now before 12 o'clock. I've got a few questions coming from our listeners about this new HIV injection that will be made available in South Africa. What are your thoughts on this? I see a lot of you are asking about whether or not this is similar to PrEP. Will you be taking it? What questions do you have about it? Give us a call on 011-883-0702. Maybe you need Mia to clarify something. You can send a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702. It's going up to 15 now before 12.
702. Health and wellness.
14 before 12 o'clock. Let's go straight to your questions now. Let's start with your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702.
Does the jab have any side effects? And I know it's still very new, but do they foresee any long-term side effects?
All right. Thank you so much for that question. Someone else also wants to know if this drug is similar to PrEP. Mia, you can answer those 2, and then I'll ask some more questions later.
Sure. Let me start with the second question, if it's similar to PrEP. So PrEP is just an abbreviation for something called pre-exposure prophylaxis. That's a smart term to say something, you take medication that protects you before exposure. That's why it says pre-exposure, and prophylaxis means protection. So yes, absolutely. Len is part of PrEP. It's a form of PrEP. And we also have a daily pill that is PrEP. Many scientists call that oral PrEP because you take it through your mouth. And many other PrEP options are also likely to become available. Scientists are doing research at the moment to see if a monthly pill will work. There's also an injection. It's not registered. It's registered in South Africa, but not available, that you can take once every 2 months. And there's also research going on to see if Lenacapavir, that we now are going to get that you take once every 6 months, if there is a version that you can take only once a year. So the first question about what are the side effects, the most common side effects that we've seen in clinical trials are normal, a bit of redness around the site of injection or a bit of swelling that goes away, and also little bumps that are called nodules when the medicine is injected, which also generally go away over time, but it's little hard bumps that you sometimes see when the medicine is injected. It's injected under the fat under your skin in your tummy, and long and more serious side effects there's not common serious side effects. The question about what would be the long-term effects, we simply don't really know at the moment because we've only had clinical trials and no country has rolled it out for long enough to see in real life what happens. The only way that we have used Lenacapavir before is in the United States. It's, for instance, registered as treatment because it's an antiretroviral drug, an ARV that we hear so much about. That's also used for treatment for people who are already HIV infected, but in a different way from we're using it as prevention. When it's used as treatment, it's used in combination with other drugs as well. For prevention, we only use Lenacapavir alone. Mm-hmm. And on the long term, we're going to have to see how it plays out in real life, but there were no concerning signs in clinical trials so far.
Okay. Another question says, hi, Clement and Mia. Please can you ask which 6 provinces are part of the initial rollout of this injection?
So yes, I can answer that. I just want to get to my story that says that because I need the list in front of me. So the 6 provinces are the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Western Cape. Those are the 6 provinces. Yeah.
Another question says, Clement and Mia, will it only be at government entities or private as well? And if so, what will be the cost?
That is a great question because it's one with a complex answer. So yes, at this stage, it will only be at government facilities because the only doses we will have access to are the ones that the Global Fund will give us. Only in 2027 will we start to buy generics because that's when generics will become available. With regards to the private sector, I have asked Gilead, have you spoken? Do you have a price for the private sector to start off with? They don't yet have a price. They say they are in talks and thinking about it. So it won't yet be available in the private sector. And even in the government sector, we don't know what the price is because the Global Fund is buying it directly from Gilead. They told our health department budget for $60 per year per patient. So in other words, $30 per dose because there would be 2 doses in a year's treatment. That $60 is not what Gilead is asking the Global Fund for it. The difference will be paid by other donors that the Global Fund is working with. So if our health department wanted to buy more doses from Gilead in 2026 before generics are available, they don't have a price yet because they don't know what it will cost. And that is something that really upsets activists, the lack of transparency.
Yeah. Catherine, you're calling us from Centurion. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement.
Oh, one second there. Catherine, I'll come back to that call. Something seems to be weird with that call. We'll come back to it in a moment. Mia, there is a question here about you spoke about transparency earlier, but the issue of cost is also of great concern. There's been discussion about cost and sustainability. So how feasible is it for South Africa's health system to afford and even sustain this kind of intervention in the long term?
So that's also a great question because there are good and bad parts. So, of course, when our health department looks at whether they can afford something like Lenacapavir, the usual thing that they do is they compare it to the cost of the daily pill to see, because that is something they can maintain. So 2 companies, when generics come on board in 2027, 2 companies generic companies have been helped by the Gates Foundation and by Unit Aid to be able to make Lenacapavir for the same cost, in fact, a little bit cheaper than the daily pill. So in that sense, yes, it will be affordable. From another sense, modeling studies show us that we would need between 1 and 2 million people per year on it if we want to end AIDS by 2040. Now, that's a lot more people than who are on the anti-HIV daily pill. So would we be able to afford that many doses if they sell it at $40 a year, which is more or less what the daily pill costs? Well, we don't know yet. And what we also don't know is there will be 6 generic companies who have been afforded licenses to make the medicine. We don't know if all 6 will come on board, but we do know the more companies there are, the more competition there is, and the lower the price will go. So it is likely that Len's price could even be less than $40 a year over a few years. That all is market forces that need to play together. We do know that our health department has said that it will use additional budget to buy generic doses.
Okay, got it. I've got other questions here that I want to get through from some of our listeners. So some people are thinking that you can take this twice yearly injection, and they're thinking it sounds so easy. But how important is adherence going to be? Because I would imagine adherence still matters here. Like, what happens if someone misses their 6-month follow-up injection? And then another question here from Phoenix, who says, hi Clement, will this substitute current treatment for those who are on HIV treatment, or do you have to take it together with your current treatment?
Thank you for those questions. So let me start with the last part. This is not HIV treatment. People who are infected with HIV are on antiretroviral treatment for the rest of their lives. And they usually have to take a combination of at least 3 medicines. Lenacapavir that we're talking now about for HIV prevention are for people who don't have HIV. So people who would use to like medicine to protect themselves from getting infected with HIV. And when you take medicine that way, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to take it for the rest of your life. You use it for periods of high risk. Maybe you're a university student or a college student and you have many sexual partners. Maybe you're in a relationship at some stage in your life where you're not in a position to negotiate for condom use, or where you're not sure what your partner do but you don't want to leave him. That is what HIV prevention or PrEP medicine is for. When it comes to what if you miss your second dose, if you need a second dose, that is something that's not great, and here's what will happen. So when you start with Lenacapavir, you get 2 injections. It's 1 dose, but because it's quite a lot of Lenacapavir, it's too much to put into 1 syringe at a time. So you go to the clinic and you'll get 2 jabs. But with those jabs, you will also need to take 4 pills. 2 pills on the day that you get the jabs, and 2 pills after that, the day after that, so that the amount of Lenacapavir in your body is high enough within 3 days to immediately protect you. If you miss your second dose, you have up to 26 weeks, so about 6.5 months to go for your second dose. If you go later than that, you will have to take the pills again. If you arrive in time, you only need a second injection. It's important to remember that this is not a vaccine. So it's not something that you get and it works for years and years because it trained your body as, to protect yourself against it. It only works when you take it. That's how it's like contraception. It only works while you take it. So it's important to remember that if you want it to work for you, you do need to turn up for your second dose and third dose.
There's someone who's asking about STIs as well. How will this injection play out when it comes to STIs, seeing that it cannot prevent them?
That is a very important question because this injection can only protect you against HIV. It doesn't protect you against other STIs like gonorrhea, for instance. So you would still, if you want protection against those STIs, you would still need to use a condom.
Mia Malan, you've been great. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Editor-in-Chief of Bhekisisa. It's 3 minutes before 12.